I went to a funeral recently. A woman I'd known for years, 78 years old. Beautiful service, lots of people sharing memories. But something happened afterward that I can't stop thinking about. Her daughter pulled me aside and told me something that honestly shocked me. Her mother had died with over $1 million in the bank. Money she never spent. Money she never used to create joy, take trips she dreamed about, or even just live comfortably. She'd spent years of retirement living with this constant fear of running out of money, denying herself small pleasures, saying maybe next year until there were no more years. And I realized something that day. She wasn't unique. She was doing what millions of seniors do. There's a habit, a strange pattern that almost nobody questions, and it's quietly stealing the final years from people who work their entire lives to have security. Today, I'm going to tell you what that habit is. And I'm warning you, once you see it, you can't unsee it. This might make you uncomfortable. It might make you angry, but if you're over 60, you need to hear this. Because this habit isn't just about money. It's about whether you actually live your remaining years or just survive them. Let me start by describing something I've noticed. I receive letters constantly from people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and there's a pattern that breaks my heart. They tell me about dreams they're postponing, trips they want to take but can't quite justify, home repairs they need but feel guilty spending on, small luxuries they deny themselves. And here's what's interesting. When I read these letters carefully, most of these people aren't actually broke. They have savings, they have pensions, they have Social Security, some have significant retirement accounts, but they live like they're one emergency away from poverty. They calculate every purchase. They agonize over small expenditures. They say things like, I really want to visit my grandchildren across the country, but I can't spend that money. Or, I'd love to finally get that kitchen remodeled, but what if I need that money later? I started paying closer attention to the actual numbers people share, how much they have saved, how much comes in monthly, what their actual expenses are. And here's what I discovered. Most of them could easily afford what they were denying themselves. The math worked, the money was there, but something else was blocking them, something deeper than spreadsheets or bank balances. Now, I'm not talking about seniors who genuinely struggle financially. That's real and it's different. I'm talking about people who have adequate resources but can't give themselves permission to use them, people who worked 40, 50 years to build financial security but never feel secure enough to actually enjoy it. And the tragedy is they don't even realize they're doing it. This habit is so normalized, so invisible, that it feels like responsible behavior. It feels like wisdom, but it's not. It's a prison. I saw this pattern in myself for years. I look at my accounts and think, I should be more careful. I should spend less, even though I had more than enough. Even though my financial situation was completely stable, I was living with artificial scarcity, and I didn't even question it until that funeral, until I saw what happens when you postpone living until it's too late. So here's what I need you to do right now. I need you to be honest with yourself. Do you have money saved but feel guilty spending it? Do you postpone experiences because you're not sure you can afford them, even though you probably can? If that's you, go to the comments and just type one word. Type postponing, because I need you to see how many of us are trapped in this pattern. And hit subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you next, it's going to explain exactly why we do this. And that explanation might change everything. Let me tell you why this happens. Why people who have adequate resources live like they don't. First, there's what I call the scarcity programming. Many of us were raised by parents or grandparents who experienced real hardship. the Depression, war rationing, periods of genuine financial crisis. And they taught us very effectively to save for hard times, to be prepared, to never waste. That was good advice when you're building security. But here's what nobody tells you. At 75, these are the hard times you were saving for. This is the future you were preparing for. You're living in it right now. The rainy day is today, but we can't shift our mentality. We keep operating like we're still preparing for something that's already here. Second, there's fear that doesn't match reality. People run these calculations in their heads. If I spend this much per month in this many years, I'll run out. And that math terrifies them. But here's what they're often not accounting for. Social Security continues. Pensions continue. Investments often keep growing. The calculation they're doing is based on anxiety, not actual financial reality. I did this myself. I'd think, what if I live to 95? What if there's a medical crisis? What if everything collapses? All reasonable concerns. But I was letting those what ifs steal my present. I was sacrificing definite joy today for hypothetical disaster tomorrow. Third, identity. For many of us, being frugal isn't just a behavior. It's who we are. We're the responsible one, the careful one, the one who doesn't waste. And spending, even when appropriate, feels like betraying that identity. It feels reckless, irresponsible, selfish. I struggled with this. I built my entire reputation on being disciplined and organized. Spending freely felt wrong even when I could easily afford it, like I was becoming someone I wasn't. But here's what I finally understood. Being responsible with money during your working years looks different than being responsible during retirement. During working years, you save and invest. During retirement, you use what you saved. That's not irresponsible. That's the entire point. And fourth, the desire to leave something behind. I understand this. You want to leave something for your children, your grandchildren. That feels noble, loving. But let me ask you something. Would your adult children rather inherit extra money when they're in their 60s or have more years of real memories with you, experiences together, time? I can tell you from conversations I've had, most adult children would choose the latter. They don't need you to die rich. They need you to live fully while you're here. Now here's what I need you to understand. This habit has a cost, and it's not financial. The cost is measured in experiences never had, comfort never enjoyed, life never fully lived. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share next is going to show you exactly what this habit steals. And it might break your heart, but you need to hear it. Hit that subscribe button now, because this conversation goes deeper than you think. The cost of this habit is devastating, and most people don't see it until it's too late. Let me tell you about experiences never lived. I've heard story after story of couples who spent their retirement saying, "We'll take that trip when we're sure we can afford it." They had the dream. They had the money, but they kept postponing. Then illness came, mobility decreased, and the trip never happened. They died with the money untouched and the dream unfulfilled. I've seen this pattern repeatedly. The cruise that was always next year, the family reunion that seemed too expensive, the visit to see old friends that kept getting delayed, all postponed until it became impossible. Then there's comfort denied. Seniors living in homes that desperately need repair. Broken appliances they make do with. No air conditioning and brutal heat. Stairs they can barely climb but won't remodel. Not because they can't afford it, but because spending feels wrong. I've heard about people living with chronic pain because a procedure wasn't covered by insurance and they couldn't justify the out-of-pocket cost, even when they had substantial savings. They chose pain over spending. They chose suffering over using their own resources. And for what? To die with money they never touched? There's also relationships impoverished by this mentality. Grandparents who have resources but never take grandchildren on special trips, never create experiences, never make memories because they're protecting money for some undefined future emergency. I've received so many letters with the same regret. I wish I'd said yes more. I wish I'd created those memories. I wish I hadn't been so worried about money. But by the time they realize it, the grandchildren are grown, the moment is gone, and the money is still sitting there, unused. And here's the cruelest irony. You worked 40 years to have financial security. The entire point was to have a better life, to not worry constantly, to have comfort and choices, but you won't actually use that security. The security just sits there, making you feel safe on paper, while you deny yourself everything you worked for. You're secure but miserable, stable but joyless. You're living small when you could be living full. What's the point of having resources if you never feel resourced? What's the point of financial peace if you never feel at peace? That woman at the funeral, she had everything she needed financially, but she lived worried, calculated, small, and died never having used what she spent her life building. Standing there, I thought, what a tragic waste, not of money, of life, of years that could have been rich and full, but were spent in unnecessary fear. Now, I'm going to tell you something personal. The moment I realized I was caught in this exact pattern, and what I did to change it. Because recognizing the problem isn't enough. You need to know how to break free. And that requires something specific from you. Stay with me. This is the most important part. I was reviewing my financial situation some time ago, and I noticed something that stopped me cold. I had more money than I'd had years earlier, significantly more, even though I was spending, even though I wasn't working the same way. How was that possible? Because my investments were growing faster than I was spending, and my spending was minimal because I was still operating with scarcity mentality, still calculating everything, still denying myself things I could easily afford. I sat there thinking, what am I saving this for? I'm 83 years old. This is it. This is the time I was saving for. And I'm still acting like I need to prepare for some distant future. But I'm already in that future. This is it. So I did something I'd never done. I got complete clarity on my actual financial picture. Not my assumptions, not my fears. Real numbers from someone who actually knows. And I asked a direct question. What can I realistically spend and still maintain security? The answer surprised me. I could spend far more than I was spending and still be completely secure. I had been creating artificial scarcity, imprisoning myself with fear that had no basis in my actual situation. That's when everything changed. I decided I was going to actually use what I'd built, not recklessly, not foolishly, but intentionally for things that create genuine quality of life. I started saying yes to things I would have previously talked myself out of. I invested more in making my daily environment truly comfortable. I stopped calculating every small expenditure like I was broke. I allowed myself to have experiences I'd been postponing. And you know what happened? My life got better, substantially better. Not because I was spending money, but because I was finally using the security I'd created instead of just protecting it. Here's what haunts me. How many people die before they figure this out? How many people spend their final decade living small, worried, postponing, only to leave behind resources they could have used to actually live? That woman at the funeral did, and I almost did. And maybe you're doing it right now in this very moment. So let me tell you exactly what you need to do. First, get real financial clarity, not guesses, not fear-based math. Sit down with someone who actually knows and ask, what can I spend and still be secure? Most people discover they can spend more than they think. The fear isn't based on reality. It's based on old programming. Second, calculate your remaining active years. If you're 70 and healthy, you have maybe 15 to 20 years where you can really travel, really move, really do things. After that, it gets harder. Those years are finite. They're not someday. They're now. What are you postponing that you might not physically be able to do in 5 years? Third, make a real list, not fantasy bucket list. Actual things you want. Visiting family, taking a meaningful trip, fixing something that bothers you daily, making your home more comfortable. Write it down. Look at the cost. Compare it to your resources. Most of you will find the math works. The only barrier is permission. Fourth, practice what I call intentional spending. Start small. That dinner you've been skipping. That home improvement you've been putting off. That small luxury that would make daily life better. These aren't frivolous. They're practice. Practice for believing you deserve to use what you built. And finally, remember this truth. You cannot take it with you. I watched that bank statement represent years of denied joy, postponed dreams, unnecessary sacrifice, all sitting there unused, all wasted. Not because she couldn't afford them, because she couldn't give herself permission. Here's what I know at 83. You worked your entire life. You saved. You were disciplined. You did everything right. Now is the time to actually use what you built, not recklessly, but intentionally, joyfully, fully. Because what is the point of financial security if you never feel secure enough to live? You're going to die safe and full of regrets? Or are you going to actually live these final years? The money won't matter when you're gone, but the experiences, the memories, the comfort, the joy, those matter now. And now is all you have. What's one thing you've been postponing because of money, even though you could probably afford it? Go to the comments and tell me. Just one thing. A trip, a repair, an experience. Write it down. And subscribe to this channel because we need more of these honest conversations about actually living instead of just surviving our final years. About using what we built instead of just protecting it. There are more uncomfortable truths about aging that nobody wants to say, and I'm going to keep saying them, but I need you here. So subscribe. Your time is limited. Your resources are probably adequate. The only thing standing between you and a better life is permission. Give yourself permission, starting today.